Mobile Monger podcast, where we go behind the scenes in the cheese world to chat with the people making, selling, or distributing your favorite specialty food products. I'm your host, Janae Muha, certified cheese professional, longtime cheesemonger, and producer advocate. Vermont Creamery is one of the more well-known names in the goat cheese market, but they have an extensive line of other cultured cream products that continue in the same high-quality vein. Have you ever wondered how cow's milk butter became a mainstay in their product lineup? Well, I've wondered that, and I've recently had the distinct pleasure of getting to ask Adeline Druart, president of Vermont Creamery herself. We chat all things butter, some new and exciting ways that Vermont Creamery is paving the way for makers in sustainability, and the difference it makes having cheesemakers at the helm. And then we'll just start, if you could introduce yourself, and then I would love just kind of a snapshot of your path to cheese.
Oh my God. How much time do we have?
We have all the time we need.
Well, hello, I'm Adeline Druart. I'm originally from France, and I'm the president of Vermont Creamery. And my path to cheese is I grew up in Franche-Comté, so there is some pretty good cheese being made there, with in a small village with more cow than people. Both my grandparents were dairy farmers, small dairy farmers, and I went to the National Dairy School, which is in the Alps, because I loved science and microbiology, and I didn't want to go and work in a lab and do blood testing or whatever. I was passionate about food. I was passionate about dairy because that's where I grew up. And so I found this school. There is only few in France, I think 3 now that are left. And it's a working school, meaning in the morning, you go make cheese at the plants. And then in the afternoon, you have classes on microbiology and biochemistry and economics. So that's what I did for 2 years. And I learned to make reblochon, Beaufort. We did Tome de Savoie. We made butter there, like all the good stuff, which was terrific. And then after that, I pursued a degree in biotechnology, a master's degree. And for that, I had to do an internship. And I remember a friend of mine had come to Vermont to work with the folks making the Tarentaise because he was from the Beaufortin. And he came back and said, hey, they make real cheese in the US. I said, what? They make cheese whiz and slices of cheddar for burger. What are you talking about? And I said, no, you should check it out. So when I had to find a place to do an internship for this master's degree that him and I were taking, I sent my resume to Vermont Creamery because the cheeses on their website had French name. And I thought, well, I speak French. I make French cheese. So maybe they would be interested in me coming over. So that's my story to cheese.
Wow. And you've been in Vermont how long now?
Well, this year is a special year because it's going to be 20 years since that first time I got on the plane and came to Vermont. So
that's amazing.
Time flies, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm celebrating 20 years in the cheese industry this year myself. So, well, you've been in it longer, but big 20-year celebration. So that's amazing.
We should have a party at ACS or something like that.
Oh, we definitely will. We definitely will. There'll be more than one, I'm sure.
Okay. I'm in.
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually, and I want to thank you for all of the butter you sent me because I made tons of chocolate chip cookies and they're delicious. But Vermont Creamery was, like you said, mostly known for goat cheeses. I kind of was wondering how they got into the butter game and like how that started.
Oh, that's a good question. I wish I could say, well, we looked at the market and we saw an opportunity and yada, yada. But not at all. So the story is we started with making fresh goat cheese. And then at some point we ran out of goat's milk. Couldn't find enough goat's milk to supply the demand. So Alison Hooper, our co-founder, have gone in France, and this is, in her early years, and this is where she discovered those amazing French-style cheeses and butter. She worked on a farm in Brittany, and so that's what spearheaded her starting Vermont Creamery. So she's like, I can't make any more goat cheeses because I don't have the milk. So what else could I make? And she thought creme fraiche. And so she got some local cream. She added some starter culture, and here she was making this delicious creme fraiche, which we started selling in restaurants in New York City. So fast forward, here we're making goat cheese and creme fraiche, and then one day they were picking up milk and cream in their routes, and they saw a barrel churn on the back of a farm. And guess what? They asked the farmer if they can buy the churn because they're like, hey, we're a butter and cheese company. So all we need is to make butter so we can fit that under our company name. And so load up the churn, dump some creme fraiche into the churn, started churning. And here came this amazing, delicious, high-fat culture butter. And that's how we got into the butter business.
I mean, it makes sense. All the cultured things go together for sure.
This is a very Vermont story.
Yeah.
We found the churn, and that's how we got into the butter business.
Something we wanted to make, so we just made it.
Yes, exactly. And what was interesting, I mean, that was, I joined 20 years ago and we were already making butter. So it's been probably 25 years we've been doing so, and been selling this butter for 2 decades in restaurant, in food service. And so this butter is on the table in some of the best restaurants across the country. But we knew that at some point we would take this high-fat culture butter and take it to the retail market, because why not having better butter on the table, right?
Absolutely.
So that's been our journey over the past 2 decades. And then also 3 years ago, we introduced the stick butter that you got.
How many farms do you work with in the area, and what does that kind of relationship look like?
Yes. So for goat's milk, we buy directly from goat dairy farmers. We have a two truck, actually, go pick up the milk twice a week. For the cream, we buy it from a local co-op, St. Albans Co-op. They are an hour and 20 minutes drive from the creamery. They have about 350 dairy farmers in the co-op. So it's a small, co-op, and recently they merged with DFA. And yeah, we've been, partnered since, I would say, 20, 30 years. And so it's most of the farms within St. Albans Co-op, they are small. They are very small dairy farm. I would say smaller in scale than the farms in California or in the Midwest. And yeah, we get, they pick up the milk, separate the cream to our specification, which is we want high fat cream, and then cream without hormones, obviously. And then within a couple of hours, the cream is delivered to the creamery. So it's a very close loop and fresh cream supply.
Can you explain to me and those out there the difference between a cultured butter and, say, a sweet cream?
Yes. So American standard of identity for butter is it's got to be made from cream, cow cream, and it's got to be 80% fat content. So it's traditional processes. You receive the cream at lower fat content, pasteurize it, and then churn it immediately into to make butter. And that's the butter that you find across the country. This is the amazing Land O'Lakes butter and most of the butter in this country. Culture butter is made with an important additional steps that takes time, which is we receive the cream, pasteurize it, and then we're going to set the cream in culturing tank. Think of if most of you have been visiting breweries, those big, silos where the bugs and the brewing happen. This is similar to what we do. So we add starter culture, which is a very specific blend of bacteria we picked. that basically eat the lactose in the cream, the sugar in the cream. And from that lactose fermentation, a couple of things happen. One of them is there is lactic acid being produced, which is going to acidify the cream, reduce the pH. Another amazing thing that happened is there is a production of diacetyl lactic acid, which has this rich, nutty taste, aromatic taste, which you can taste in our butter. So, and that production of this compound, that nutty compound, happen at a very specific pH. So that's why we stay there for a very long time. That's why we culture the cream for 20 hours is a very, very long time, but it's to have the optimum flavor production, the aromatic production in our cream. And then only we churn this cream into butter.
Amazing. I've mostly talked to kind of smaller producers, but I would love to hear how that kind of works on a nationally distributed level. Like, how many churns are you running at a time? Like, how much butter are you making in a day?
So it's a good question, and you would be surprised. You would come to our butter room and you're like, this is the size of a shoebox. Like, what are you doing here? Because it doesn't have our churn is not big. It's but it you know. So what's the churning process? Is you take cream, and then basically it's churning is an emulsion reversion. Basically, you whip the cream, and at some point the fat globule that is in the liquid and the water turn into now being create this solid, that grain of butter. So our churn is small, but the whipping component just happen, nonstop. We used to have a barrel churn where you put the cream, roll it, churn it, and then take the butter out, rinse it, and then start the next batch. Now we have something called a continuous churn, where the cream comes in one end of the churn. It's being whipped, it's being augured to extract the buttermilk out of it, and then comes on the other side of it. So we run 3 to 4 days a week for about 8 hours, the churn. And yeah, that's what it takes. And annually we sell close to 2 million pounds of butter.
That's amazing. I have never had the opportunity of seeing a continuous churn, so I'm excited to get to come out one day and actually see it happen. I've seen the barrel churns, which are awesome, and getting to kind of see all the little butter granules when they're,
oh gosh,
it's fun.
And the smell, what I love the most is when I walk into the butter room, the smell of freshly churned cream, and especially in cultured butter, that cream has so much aromatic flavor that it has this, fresh buttermilk taste to it, that sweet corn, and you can smell it in a room. It's pretty amazing. One thing I wanted to add is cultured butter is not defined or regulated in the US. So there is other way to make cultured butter, which is to add those aromatic at the end of churning. So skip the 20 hours of culturing to produce that flavor, but add lactic juice at the end of the churning, and you don't have to disclaim that on the packaging, but the way I explain it, you can make wine by taking grape juice and add vinegar and cherry flavor, or you can age it in oak barrel, and we do the oak barrel version of it.
That's a great distinction, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. I don't even think that I knew that, but I knew that you guys took a lot more time in your process, and that's why the flavor is so delicious.
Thank you.
And I also assume that Vermont Creamery has a proprietary culture blend that you use.
The one we select is not made just for us, but it's a blend. We blend 3 different kinds.
So you make your own. Yeah, you make your own proprietary blend.
Yeah. Yes. Which is important. I mean, that's how that plus the quality of the cream, the sourcing of the cream, and then that magic in the temperature we culture the cream, the time we take. All of this is the steps that makes it different.
So one of the reasons why butter is a little bit difficult to make in the United States is because of the amount of waste that kind of happens with it. Um, do you have any, well, just from like the way, and it's
Yes.
you need the good part, the cream of the crop, basically, literally.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with that side of things?
And you're so prepared. All those questions are awesome. Which, by the way, for anyone listening, I didn't get any question ahead of time. So I was like, okay, we're gonna wing it, which is perfect. So I'm glad you brought this up because we have a little bit of an announcement, groundbreaking news here.
Woohoo.
Our whey and buttermilk, before we used to handle it with trucking it a couple times a day to deliver it to local farms, and they would feed that whey and buttermilk to cows or pig, which is, it's great and it's fine, but it's a lot of mileage, to get rid of byproducts. We wanted to turn that into something that is more circular, like trying to do something out of this byproduct. And so we just launched a partnership with Vanguard Renewable Energy. And they're a company in Vermont that focus on installing biodigester on farm. And so our whey and buttermilk is being sent to a nearby cow dairy farm that has this amazing, it's one of the largest biodigester in the country. And they're producing natural renewable gas out of this byproduct. And what's terrific is not only we produce now energy with our whey, but it also helped the farm to, they are able to remove phosphorus out of the land. They are able to use the byproduct of the digestion to have bedding for their cows, which has impacted their somatic cell and reduced the somatic cell. So the cows are more comfortable because of the bedding. The land is now being cleaned up from all that phosphorus. And we get to create natural gas out of natural renewable gas. And it's all because of the buttermilk and the whey that we send and Vermont Creamery send as well.
That's amazing. And I
That's
do apologize
cool.
for not sending the
Don't
question,
apologize. I'm
but
glad
that
I can
one
answer.
kind of came off the top anyway. So, because
Yes. Good
that's
one.
that's how we
Yeah.
roll. We just, but that's amazing. And I love to hear that. And I love seeing that more companies are taking those steps to reduce their carbon footprints and be more actively engaged with how we are
Yeah.
making things in this country and doing things a little bit different.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And the creamery, to build on that note, the creamery 2.5, 3 years, 2 years ago, we transitioned all our electricity to be cow powered. So all our electricity is also coming from electricity generated on farm through digesters. So, just trying to connect all the dots here, hopefully do the right thing, or being on our way to do the right thing.
I like the cow powered.
Yes. Cow poop power, actually.
Well,
yeah.
Just as a funny side note, I got to visit Point Reyes on my way back up from San Francisco, which I always, if I can, I make that trek. But Lynn was showing me the new robotic milkers that they have. And it was just really funny because to get to where the milkers were, she had to pull out the hose and spray off some cow poop. And it was just kind of like, guess what? In the dairy world, it doesn't matter how far you get. You're the president of ACS right now, and you're still spraying cow poop.
There you go.
Humbling position to be in.
Oh my God, you bet. You bet, which is, I don't know. That's why I love this industry so much, is we get to work for farmers and we get to create food and it's a very humbling experience. Keeps us grounded.
Exactly. So I wanted to kind of go back to like your French background, and obviously the French have very high standards when it comes to butter and cheese. So what are those kind of parameters that you're usually looking for the best tasting butter in particular?
Yeah, well, I remember when we were churning in the barrel churn, which why we went from barrel churn to continuous churn is first of all that old barrel churn broke and like broke for real, like and broke during the week leading to Christmas when no one is buying butter. So we're like, okay, we need something reliable here because this is no longer a side business. This is a real business making butter. So we transitioned because of that reason, and the other reason is because we needed to control the sweating into the butter. Some butter that are still very much handmade and churned in a barrel churn, and then where you rinse the buttermilk, you see that sweating happening, and it creates a marble effect, and we needed to reduce that because it can create some pockets of bacterial growth or oxidation, and we felt like the next step for us was to improve on that, which is why we moved to a continuous churn, which has a screen that helps break down those buttermilk and moisture particle into smaller ones, so you have a more uniform butter. And so that's what we focus on and spend most of our time on. The other thing is I personally have a lot of sensitivity to oxidation. And so making sure that, our butter, never gets to that point. That's why we have a shorter shelf life compared to, I would say, the standard in the industry. And we have the wrapper around our stick butter that has special UV light and things like that to just keep the freshness. Like you've seen sometime you open butter and it's like it has this dark yellow crust all around. And it's like, oh my God, to me, it's like how long this thing has been churned, like, and how far has it traveled? Because this is, you can taste the metallic and the oxidation and so focusing on that, focusing on consistent texture, and then focusing on those oxidation notes. And we spend also a lot of time on the culturing process, how to be at this optimal pH for so long, so we get the nutty cultured notes.
I love it. So much care.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's important for people to understand that for especially like a nationally distributed company, that people just think like, oh, this is just a big company. They're not paying that much attention, but it's always good to know that care is still, that care is still happening.
Well, this company is run by a cheesemaker and butter maker, and it's embedded in the culture of the business. I mean, Bob and Alison, they cared so much of the quality of the product that as we grew, that stayed there. That's part of who we are. So it's okay to be nationally distributed as long as you put quality, and for us we call it taste above all, which is if it's not going to be the best tasting butter or creme fraiche or goat cheese, we either going to put it off the market or we're just not going to innovate in those spaces.
That's the key. Having people in the places. That's the key. Having people in places that know how to make things taste the best is.
Okay.
Is there anything about butter that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure people know?
I'm just super excited about the butter conversation, because for so long we've been talking about cheese or trichum or goat cheese, and now it's like, let's talk butter, because there's so many amazing locally produced butter. Like for so long, it was the traditional butter. We have had some amazing legacy brand, including Mendelix, and then the specialty butter had to be imported from France or from Europe, and so kudos to those companies for paving the way, bring like a different kind of special butter. And I feel now there is incredible specialty butter made in the US, including Vermont Creamery, including, for example, Plowgate Creamery, who is in our states. So it's exciting to see Vermont and the US now having a specialty butter history that is being built, and people value that.
And people stop being scared of it too. Cause growing up in the 80s in the United States, like butter was villainized. It was fat and you didn't want fat. So like people,
Right.
and still now when I talk to people about butter or like, so we have a local butter maker here, Cherry Valley Dairy, and they sell theirs sometimes in like a 5-pound wheel, almost looks like cheese because it's Jersey grass-fed butter
Oh my
during the
God.
height of summer. And some shops sell it cut to order, and people will be like, "Oh, let me taste that cheese, but or that butter cheese," and we're like, "Just so you know, it actually is butter. I'm happy to give you a sample." People get really weird about it. Oh, no, 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 no. Yes, just try it. It's delicious. It's just like cheese. It's
Mhm.
no different. So it is
Mhm.
funny how people have very preconceived notions in the United States about butter. And I'm glad we're breaking down those barriers. Get rid of them.
Yeah, we have to.
Okay, so I have 3 questions that I kind of ask everybody at the end of these. Are you ready? They're
Oh my
easy.
God, I'm
They're easy.
shaking.
Well, everybody says that they're hard, but they're not that hard. Just
Okay, okay, do it. Bring it
whatever
on.
comes to the first thing in your head. What is your current cheese crush?
Conte, my parents just came and my in-law lived in Poligny. I mean, they literally live in the capital of Conte, so they brought 3 kilos. And I'm just like, even my kids don't have access to that.
That's Adeline only. Keep that
Yes,
secret in your
yes.
own personal fridge.
Yep, yep.
Good for
We
you. Good
do,
for you.
we have a cheese fridge in our house.
What is your favorite cheese pairing?
Um, well, the first thing that comes in mind, I don't know if it's because, close to happy hour, but it's like I love champagne. I love sparkling wine. Like I'm French, so let's own it. So this goes really well with our aged goat cheeses, But if I had to pick outside of booze, another pairing, I did this event last year with Elizabeth from Murray's, and we did coupole with some rustic bakery crackers, and then on top we had a smoked peach jam. And the whole thing, the whole experience was like, we're yakking around, and all of a sudden, her and I put that pairing into our mouth and just sang and said, "Oh my God!" It tasted like a peach cobbler, and we're in the world of food. We taste so many different things that it's sometimes hard to be like, wow, this was my last wow moment.
It's good when everybody goes silent and they're just like,
Yeah, yeah.
all right, last one. Your top food memory, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, like a specific restaurant or anything, but just like what is your favorite memory of, like, I don't know, growing up and making food with family or your own family?
Well, when we go back to France as a family every year, the first thing my mom serves me is faisselle with her jam that she makes out of cassis. Have you had faisselle, that fromage blanc faisselle? You know what that
I
is?
don't think so.
So in France, fromage blanc is kind of the Greek style yogurt of here, but there is a faisselle is like a fresh cheese, and it's whole milk, and it's sold in a little colander that then lays into a cup. So it has it's thick, so you can break into it. So it's this, yeah, it's like a hard fromage blanc, and you serve it with with jam on top. And so it's what I grew up eating, and it's delicious. And so that's, I would say, my memory. And we tried to do it at Vermont Creamery. We did it for a couple of months for Le Bernardin for Eric Ricker, and then we're like, it's like we were ladling like those teeny tiny cups for a couple of times, and I'm like, okay, let's shut this thing down. But that's my favorite food memory, I guess.
Oh, well, I can't wait to get back to France to taste that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we can find any in the US, unfortunately.
There's a lot of things that we can't get over here. Like I just saw an article on Gastro Obscura about conquillette. Is that how you pronounce it? Conquillette?
Concoyat?
Yes.
Yes.
And I got to experience that when I was in France and was blown away by the deliciousness that was. And it is definitely not something you can get in the US because most of it is raw milk and very young, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was fun seeing that reminder of my time when I got to spend some time in France.
Yeah. So that would be your French food memory. If I had to turn back the question to you.
That or same area, because I was in Besançon, and my friends actually took me to a cheese shop there, and we bought a big Vacherin Montour, and they made it the way that their family has always done it, shoving garlic cloves in the top and pouring it with white wine and shoving it in the oven and then dripping it over roasted or like boiled potatoes. And like, that was just very heavenly and very like, we had a couple friends over, or they had a couple friends over besides us. And it was just very homey and very French. And
Yeah. And then you go into a cheese coma. We went back home for Christmas, last Christmas. It was 2 years, it was a very long time. And so our parents we did your favorite food. We were planning the menu every night. So first night we had Vacherin Mondor. Second night we had raclette. And then third night was Christmas Eve. I'm like, I think I'm going to die. It's too much, but yeah.
I definitely think our friends in Besançon spoiled us because they also took us to a fondue restaurant and like they were definitely spoiling us, where our other friends that we were staying with in other parts of France didn't quite know as much about cheese. So like that place, our friend definitely was very in tune with the local cheese community, and I was very happy for it.
There you go. Well, I grew up 30 minutes from Besançon. So you're talking about home right now, which is fun.
I enjoyed that area immensely. So I lucky you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's all I have for you. So I just want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to come and hang out and talk about butter.
Well, thanks so much. And that tattoo was like, oh my God, this is cool. This is very powerful. I took a screenshot and sent it to my team and said, I know her. Everybody thinks you're a celebrity, just so you know, at Vermont Creamery. So when you come, you're going to get the red carpet treatment.
Oh man, I feel this. I mean, to be able to say like my butter tattoo got me a time with Adeline Druart herself. Like I feel pretty big about that. And it's funny too, because a lot of people do have cheese tattoos, but I was like determined I needed a butter tattoo.
Yeah. Take it to a whole new level, and you sure did. So.
Thank you again to Adeline for sharing her time and expertise. There's nothing like conversations with people who share love as deep as the love we share for great butter. This podcast is recorded, produced, and edited by me, Janae Muha. Thank you to Ben Muha for allowing me to use your music. Follow along on my cheesy adventures at Instagram, Facebook, or get more content at Patreon. My website is also a great hub for all of my goings-on. Thanks for listening. And remember to keep spreading the word of good curd.